Let's start first of all by saying that we're very glad to have you all today here in our webinar. This is Salma Osman, the co-founder of You for Urban Impact. We actually tried to make this to talk mainly about many things around us globally, focusing mainly on solving the urban challenges that we're already facing everywhere in the world. And fortunately, we can have the chance to talk with you all virtually in this pandemic thing. So basically, we want today to be focusing on why is it important to focus on our assets, and that we're running out of everything around us. So we need to focus in a different approach or a circular approach in that manner. So we mainly be focusing on finding out solutions and also try to take actions toward these problems and try to find out other solutions that can help us achieve circularity in general. So I'll leave the floor now to Lubna to give you a small introduction about who we are as You for Urban Impact and also a brief about today's session.
Thank you, Salma, for this introduction. I would like to welcome you all here, and I'm very glad we're able to connect regardless of the pandemic and the barrier of Zoom. And I would like to give a brief introduction about You for Urban Impact and why we started, and the vision behind this step towards a better city. So we're trying to mainly explore different ways that to impact cities by including people or creating what we call participatory design, and to shift the way people approach cities and how we impact cities. And we have several goals to achieve this. And today we're tackling the second goal, which is recycling. And we're looking at recycling from a broader point of view, which is the idea of circularity in general. So today's session talks about repurposing individuals and redirecting materials to achieve circularity, which is basically we're trying to break the linear process of the extract, consume, and dispose of materials, and to create a circular approach, whether with people themselves or the materials themselves. And I encourage everyone to scan the QR code presented here to access the full brochure of the virtual, which includes this topic I'm tackling today. And with that, I'm glad to introduce our amazing moderator, Radwa Rustum. She's the perfect combination between building and between sustainability. And she's the co-founder of an amazing initiative called Handover. And I will leave the floor to her. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lubna and Salma. Thank you not just for the introduction, but thank you for the whole event and for including us and giving us this platform and the floor to share our ideas and talk about these important topics. So welcome everyone. So happy I'm with you today. And we have lots of amazing names and experts, so I'm sure that they will be very effective for all the attendees. So yes, let me start first by introducing myself. I'm Radwa Rustum. My background is in civil engineering. I started my company almost 5 years ago. The main core of Handover, it's a social enterprise. We're a design and build company mainly focusing on delivering sustainable building solutions by using techniques and technologies that are affordable and sustainable by outsourcing and by using sustainable and local materials. So our main goal is how to create sustainable communities and to create the real aspect of community development approach while doing it with the community, with local materials, and with a greater impact. So let me also just speak very quickly about the topic and introduce you to the agenda of the day, how the day will go, and then I will start kicking off our event right away. So yes, our topic, as Lubna and Salma were saying, we're talking about recycling, but in more of the broader meaning of it. So it's a mean to achieve this concept of circular economy. We'll be talking about initiatives related to upcycling waste and using it for different purposes, how to reduce even waste generation from the first place. We'll also talk about the consumption schemes and how they can be refined. We also have, as I was saying, and as I will introduce also our experts, we have experts from different disciplines to talk about their backgrounds, their opinions, and their ideas of how to make this achievable. So it's all about holistic approach. So any ideas, suggestions, and views are more than welcome. So let me go through the agenda and introduce the speakers very briefly. I will give you the floor to introduce yourself, to make it, to make you like to have all the things that you want to say about your amazing work. So we will be starting first with our keynote speaker, Ms. Salma Al-Halabi from Nestle Egypt. We will start the day with your presentation. And then we will shed the light on 2 success stories, one from an international perspective and one from a local perspective. So our local case study will be from Shadoof. It will be presented by Malik Tag, the Business Development Manager at Shadoof. And then we will have another international case study will be presented by Barbara Bagaglia, I hope I pronounced it correctly, from Italy. Afterwards, we'll have a very short break, and then we will come back with the section of the urban talks. In this section, we will have 5 amazing experts. We'll talk about their backgrounds, and then we'll have the floor to discuss and reflect more. Our experts in this section will be Dr. Hiba Khalil, Professor of Sustainable Urbanism at Cairo University in AUC. We also have Lisa Ataya, Startup Strategist and Entrepreneur. We also have Dr. Wissam Melbeid, Country Director at Durosis Foundation. We have the architect Layla Badawi, founder of Grids Architects and Azores partner. We have Hannah El-Sadat, the CEO and founder of NEA platform. And lastly, but not least, we have engineer Minna Samir, Environmental Ministry Associate. Afterwards, we will give the floor for some Q&As from our audience. We will also, as I said, we will have some discussion because we're more than sure that there are lots of things to reflect on after what you're going to say. So we'll give some quality time to talk about all this, and then we'll just close with some remarks. Just before we start, I have some very small housekeeping notes to say. Just for the sake of having everything smooth, we'll be muting all the mics for the speakers and the panelists, only for the one who's speaking. If anyone wants to talk or to comment on anything from the panelists, please just use the option of raising your hands, or just even raise your hands like physically. And for the attendees, we don't have the option of opening the mic for you, so you can use, you can find the Q&A. I'm sure you all know how to use it. You just type in your questions. Our moderators, like all the moderators, will be checking your questions, and we'll have to pick some of them. We're not sure we'll be able to cover them all, but we'll make our best to cover them. So without further ado, I think we can just kick off our day with Salma Al-Halabi. Please, the floor is all yours. If you can introduce yourself and then tell us everything.
Of course.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for Salma and Radwa and Lubna for the great. I think you're doing something that's unprecedented. So it's very exciting to be in this with you, and also of course the esteemed panel. I'm very excited to be with this group today. So my name is Salma Al-Halabi. I've been with Nestle for quite some time. My background with Nestle was mostly supply chain. Lucky enough to move around. I worked in Switzerland in our head office, and I also moved to the US. And I came back really passionate about youth, about education, about sustainability topics. And today I'm fortunate enough to be leading Creating Shared Value in Egypt. Creating Shared Value these are all the initiatives that stem out of our corporate commitment, all of our sustainability topics in their broader sense. And here I am today sharing with you one of our proud moments in Egypt among the global Nestle achievements. So just before I start, just to set the scene a bit as to why I'm here with you today. So Nestle has a global commitment to have our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. Now, there are several key actions throughout the entire value chain. This is starting with how we source our ingredients, how we grow them, how we manufacture, transportation and logistics, and our product portfolio. Now, when we talk about our product portfolio, this means not just reducing the carbon footprint of the products that we offer consumers, but also with regards to our packaging material. And this is why we're here today, to tell you the story of one of our key projects globally. So I'm going to share my screen. share. You see it, right? Are we good? All right. So in Egypt, millions of tons of plastics are generated, and they end up in landfills, they end up incinerated, burnt, or on the shores. Now, because of the geographical location of Egypt, any waste that ends up in our water sources means that it travels. And when it travels, for instance, I'll give you a very simple example. Today, if you look at the top 10 polluters of the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile is right at the top of the list. So this means we really need to think about where our waste ends up and how we go about that. Now, in Nestle, and we talked about how we're working on our product portfolio. Now, when we talk about our packaging commitment, it's not just important that we committed that we are going to make all 100% of our packaging material by 2025 to be either recyclable or reusable. Now, this is, and we are on track. Egypt's on track. Globally, we're on track. All countries across the world are on track to reach 100% recyclable or reusable packaging material by 2025. Now, in addition to this, and what's very important and why we're here today, is that countries have the infrastructure in place to be able to manage this waste. Now, when we talk about where we stand today, it's very important, and this is our key objective, is to achieve neutrality. This means is that what I make, what I manufacture, what I sell, is also collected and recycled. And this is why this project, why I'm here with you today sharing this project. Now, we came up with a model called Dorna. Now, Dorna was done in collaboration with CID, and I'll tell you how PayMob comes into play. Dorna is an initiative that it's not a project, and I think we're always very mindful is not to call it a project, but it's actually a system. It is a model that is scalable and sustainable. The idea is that it boosts the collection and recycling rates of waste collectors. Now, how do we do this? So today, waste in Egypt is completely managed by the informal sector. We know we have door-to-door waste collectors. It's complete, and despite several efforts that have taken place across decades, it's very difficult to penetrate that the model that we have today. So it's very, very deep-rooted. So when we thought about how are we going to tackle this infrastructure, how are we going to do this? How are we going to not just do our part with regards to transforming our product portfolio and our packaging material, how are we actually going to create that infrastructure? We knew that this meant that we have to collaborate with the existing waste management sector. Now, there are 5 main areas where waste is managed in Egypt, and 50% of the waste in all of Egypt is managed in Manshiyat Nasser. Now, we collaborated with CID Consulting in order to do all the analysis, all the work that needed to see how we were going to collaborate with this group of people and create that model. So again, the idea is that, yes, technically, waste is currently being collected. However, how can we incentivize and how can we boost those, how can we play an active role in boosting the collection and recycling rates of PET, of plastic bottles, and at the same time, make sure that we have the visibility and the transparency to say, yes, we are progressing towards neutrality. What I'm making, what I'm selling, is also what is getting collected and actually getting recycled. So what we did is that we thought we had to create a tracking, in order to have that visibility and that transparency, we had to create a digital platform. And this is where PayMob comes in. We had to, throughout the entire value chain, we needed to make sure that all the movement of waste from one person to another was recorded and tracked in a digital platform. Now, this meant that transactions were formalized. When I say that I'm incentivizing this community, this is a digitally enabled process. Now, what's very important here is that PayMob, and this is a collaboration, it's a youth startup. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but it's one of the leading startups in digitalization, supporting digital economy. And the idea is that every value chain actor throughout the entire project has an e-wallet. So they have their phones, you have to have a national ID, you have to have a phone number. Now, having a national ID means that no one under the age of 16 is part of this project. And this is something that we had to take into account when we say that this is not just an environmental project, but it's also a socially inclusive model. We had to make sure that we are respecting the national standards and international labor standards. So anyone within this project is over the age of 16 and has a national ID, has a working phone, has a phone number. And I'll tell you why, we'll bring this up again in a couple of minutes. But here, every single person who is part of this value chain is recording the amounts that they receive and pass on. So all of the quantities that move along the chain are recorded. And the value of that incentive is reimbursed through an e-wallet. Now, when we refer to value chain actors, what do we mean? We mean door-to-door collector. We mean the person who sorts and segregates, the person who shreds and compresses, all the way to, from the door-to-door waste collector that comes right at our door, all the way to the manufacturing facility. And this is the movement and tracking that we're talking about. Now, in addition to this, because we know that, again, we're talking about transparency and visibility and making sure that this movement actually takes place. So we also have on-ground field verifiers who go and they make sure that everything that's being recorded on the platform is actually taking place. To date, we've recovered 10,000 tons of plastic. And these have not just been collected, but we know that they have reached a recycling facility to be recycled into pellets, into fibers, into textiles. There are more than I think 5 to 7 recycling facilities in Egypt. And we have that visibility, and we can claim that today. And the project is progressing. Now, we have 1,200 value chain actors that are part of this system. 20% of these are women. So over 200 women today have an additional source of income. 200 women today are financially independent. Over 200 women today are able to spend more on their children, on improving their specifically, and this is after the door-to-door interactions that we have based on healthcare and nutrition. Now, this part here, and I tie it again to what we were doing with the e-wallets. This is very, very important when we talk about those value chain actors and how this model is socially inclusive, is that every single person who has a role to play is being acknowledged and rewarded for the work that they do. There's no generic. So if the wife, the sister, the daughter, it is this person who is on the system, who is doing this job, who is getting rewarded for this. So it's very important for us that we were socially inclusive and that everyone does get paid for the work that they were doing. Now, this project, of course, is an additional source of income because, like we were saying in the beginning, is that yes, waste is technically being collected, but when we say that we are incentivizing, we are going over and above the threshold, the average that they would usually. And this, of course, this was analysis. So this is a threshold that was identified based on research. So today we know that they're doing a lot more than they were actually collecting. So we've improved their livelihoods. We have improved their technological literacy. We are supporting the government's Egypt 2030 vision with regards to transforming towards a more digital economy and formalizing transactions through financial inclusion. And of course, women empowerment, and our collaboration with PayMob is an example of youth enablement. Now, today, this project this was all kicked off in January 2019, and there was a lot of analysis. We had a pilot of 6 months. And when we launched this project externally, when we announced it externally, it had already been running past the pilot phase for almost a year, which meant that when we announced this model and we call it a system, it is creating a system. It is a sustainable. It is a sustainable model. It is a replicable model, and it's one that can be scaled up. And this is something that we are very proud of. So when we went to the general public and we said, okay, this is something that we are offering, so that we are creating a private sector movement. This is the nationwide private sector movement. We really had something to offer. Now, today, again, very proud of this, is that just last week, the Post-Consumer Plastic PACT was initiated, and Dorna, which is this system, was taken as an example of this. So this is how, and again, I believe PepsiCo also just launched their own sustainability platform as well, environmental sustainability platform. Within it, Dorna is playing a great role because, again, they are adopting the same model of incentivizing waste collectors and collaborating with the sector. The Post-Consumer Plastic Waste Pact, and I believe someone from the ministry, I believe Dr. Yasmin or one person from your team will be with us later today. But this is something it's quite groundbreaking, that the private sector is really coming together, pledging to take part in initiatives that are supporting infrastructure. Today we know that the waste management law is out, but there's still the conversations about extended producer responsibility and ERP are still coming to place. And you already have projects that are up and running like this, scalable, working, proactive, that are really setting the example of what we can do on a national level to really support whilst being socially inclusive. We're not creating a model that's completely independent of how things are run. We're really building it based on what we currently have today. So it really goes beyond environmental impact to create that social economic impact. And in Nestle, we say we're the good food, good life company. And we're really living up to not just being good for you, but also good for the planet and being a force for good. So thank you very much. I think I'm good on time. I'm not sure if we have room for questions, but yeah. So this is the story of Dorna, and hopefully it's moved to becoming a national private sector movement.
Thank you so much, Salma. We couldn't have wished for another positive note to start the day with. You've mentioned and you hit on so many points of being a role model in the private sector, connecting all these stakeholders together, creating a system and not just a project that can be replicated, having all these big players with you. That's very, very inspiring. So we would definitely will have more time to talk and discuss and let people ask you. I myself have a lot of questions to ask you, but let's give it at the end of our day. And let's move. Yeah, thanks a lot again, Salma. So yeah, like you've mentioned your case study from the private sector. Now we also have some stories and also success stories and case studies to mention and to talk about. So we're starting now with Barbara. So you have also a very interesting idea to tell us about, and you have a very interesting case study to talk with us about. So the floor is all yours. Please introduce yourself and your work, and we're so excited to hear about it all.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Yes.
I will show my presentation. That's it. Okay, so I am Barbara Bagaglia. I'm an architect, so my point of view is quite different from the girl who spoke before me, because my speech is about the responsibility, about my work, and about environmental problems. Because we do projects, we are architects, so I don't know how many architects you are, but anyway, the architect, they make projects. A project means that you mix things because you have a theme, a necessity, and a solution. So you have to find the shape of something that somebody asks you. And the problem is that very often this is also a process, and a process is not a linear one. It goes up and down. You go from one thing to the whole thing. And I speak about this because I want to show you the difference between the process we generally do now and then future. Process is also a little path because we go through small problems and big problems. We have to watch small things and big things and keep them together. And in a society like the one we live in, we need to create a movement much more than a shape, because we have to connect and to make things work in a dynamic society. So the reuse project is something different. It's not what we saw until now. It's something more, because we want to transform a problem into a resource. This is the challenge that we aim to resolve in some way. And we want to use reuse as a tool for change. For this reason, we have to start thinking different, because it's not a linear one. It's something completely new, because we have to manage a situation which is out of control. So we have to give new answers to the same questions, because the questions are not different. The problem is that the answers we have given until now are not more the right answers. So the questions are why, what, how, and where. Why? I'm speaking about the theme of the project. So why? We have to make a project because we have pollution, because we have to spare resources. We have to help nature to preserve ourselves. What is the theme? The theme is waste, is consumption, but it's also in habits, is work, is life, is everything we live every day. So is our mind, is not only something material. How? The way you choose to change things is the project as well. Because if you do a light transformation, a simple work, a easy technique, you use few tools, you can do less environmental problem than if you make something different. And where is everywhere, because the new way of project is not to make the project unsustainable because we move things from one side to another of the world. The result, what we can obtain from this new kind of project, work, because we can create opportunity to make work people, and that's quite easy to understand. Inclusion, because when we make this kind of work, we think that if we change the way we think about project, we also change the thing we think about the people that works, and perhaps we will help who has nothing to work. The pollution, because we don't use nothing else but waste. And the very difficult thing is to do something nice with waste and useful. Conscious consumption, this is another theme for us, is fundamental, because if we don't understand that zero waste is the topic, then we will never resolve anything. We will save resources because we don't use nothing that is virgin. Like, I don't like this word, but anyway. And it's a big design challenge for us, because it can make us think about what is our role in society, which is not only to make beautiful things, but it is to help life to be in this earth, not destroying it. The expectation is something more. What can you expect on more? We could think about the fact that many people use unnecessary things, and many people then could transform these unnecessary things in money. I think about bottle or plastic, for example. Something else is about the fact that everything we reuse has a specific quality, and we could aim to transform this quality in a super quality, not just transfer totally. Then we could realize that we create community much more than money, because we create work, but we put things to people together to this new way of working. Then we have to make a difference in our lives and in our mind and in the way we spend money. We should start choosing, and also choosing things that will be able to return to nature, because if it's biodegradable, but is not put in the right place, it's worse as well. So the production, how do we do the production? Not transforming too much what we have. We have to choose easy stuff. So we want to make it simple, easy, fast, light, and with few tools. And we tried. And we also created a connection and a synergy between the workers, between who think like me, the project, and who does. So in 2019, we produced a small collection, and you can see us working with hands, with simple things. And we could create this collection of lampshades, because this is what we do with plastic bottles. And here we are working, you see, in Rome. This is an experience we had in Rome, and the product. I show you what we can do with bottles. This is the lampshade done with plastic bottles, just cotton and painted, light painted, because if it's not white, light goes too much through. And this lampshade lasts more than 10 years, because the first one I've done 10 years ago, and it's still right. Nothing happened to it. And this is another model. And then we can see that these different models belongs to the fact that every piece is used at best for its shape. So with the back, we make flowers. These are small bottles that cotton like this on a spiral becomes this. So it's to find the simplest way to transform something into something else with an action that I call superuse. Is not reuse, it's superuse, a superior use of the same matter. So this is for babies, but also for old people, because it's like people going around to share this new kind of work and of design, and many models, many measures, and you can wash them with water and a degrasser, and nothing happens. Plastic is a fantastic material. It lasts 10,000 years, I think. So that's my presentation. I don't know what time is it, because I don't know if we have more time.
We still have a couple of minutes if you want to add anything, but the presentation is very
I think that the problem is that we have to change something before reusing. So I would say that the first thing is that we drink from the top and not from the bottle. If we stop now to drink from bottle, we have 10 years to produce lampshades with the bottles that yet exist now.
Yes, right. That was one of my main takeaways from what you said, the simplicity. That's what you stressed on, that maybe we can find the solutions to our big issues with very simple solutions and very simple initiatives. And what you've done of upcycling, or as you said, super use of things that has been already had a lifetime and a life cycle. And by the end of it, you just created another new one for it. And that's very reusable and very cheerful with the lamps that you showed us. So thank you very much for sharing with us your work, and also sharing with us your methodology of how you reached to this. That was also very insightful, that many can really take this as a reference. So
thank you for calling me for share with everybody this meeting.
absolutely. Thanks a lot, Barbara. Yeah, so now we will go to our second case study from Egypt this time. So we have Malik from Shadoof. Malik, the floor is all yours, and you can share the screen if you want to.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, I think you need to end share screen so that I can start.
Now you can.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Malik Teg. I work at Shadoof. I'm in charge of business development. I also head the products unit of our company. And I'm really excited to be talking to you today about our urban farming kits project and how we hope to enable and empower local residents to become agricultural entrepreneurs and start their own farming ventures inside Cairo and hopefully soon in other cities in the region. Can you hear me right? Okay, I'm getting some echo.
It's working very well, yes.
Okay, great. So first of all, just to introduce you all to Shadoof, we are an Egyptian company founded in 2011. By the way, Shadoof is an Egyptian word. It's the name of like an ancient irrigation tool that ancient Egyptian used to lift water up to higher places. And our mission is to elevate the quality of life through environmental and social change. And we do so by crafting and providing sustainable products and services in the fields of urban agriculture and landscape. We start really at the planning phase of cities and neighborhoods. And we do something called sustainable and environmentally conscious landscape design. We also contribute to the environmental restoration and greenification of cities by supplying and installing green walls and green roofs, and all the way down to the individual residents themselves, where we provide smart farming and landscaping solutions for the home. In our 10 years of working in these fields, we've completed over 10,000 square meters of vertical gardens, and our work can be found in 20 different cities across the Middle East. We've installed over 200 vertical gardens in private homes, in restaurants, hospitals, schools, and universities, and even in governmental buildings. When it comes to urban agriculture, we believe that cities all over the world will have to resort and have actually already started depending more and more on urban farming solutions that bring in the production of fresh produce inside the city borders. Because of how much the population is growing, especially in major cities of developing countries like Cairo, it's unsustainable and it's inefficient to rely solely on farmland that is located outside the city, and the effects of transporting this produce back into the city has enormous effects on the environment too. So we realize that we need to innovate and come up with solutions that take advantage of the spaces within our cities and the complementary technologies that can allow us, the residents, to produce for ourselves. And we do that at Shadoof through 3 different vehicles. First, vertical farming, where we consult and manage large-scale vertical farms in the region. Second is through personal home farming, where we provide products for individuals to grow their own fresh produce at home. And last but not least, rooftop community farming, where we create networks of urban farmers out of local residents by providing them with the know-how, the tools, or what we call kits, and the support they need to manage a farm from seed all the way to harvest, and eventually through sales of their produce as a way to increase their monthly income. Most of our work revolves around hydroponic farming. For those of you who aren't aware of the term, hydroponics is a recently developed farming technique. It was invented in the 1930s, and it simply replaces soil in farming with water, where the roots of the plants are supplied directly with the nutrients that they need. And that water is then recycled and replenished, and this leads to savings in water losses up to 70% compared to traditional farming. And just by not requiring land or soil, hydroponics is a lot easier to replicate the optimum growing conditions for plants in different environments that are more likely to be found in our urban settings. So all over the world, people are actually growing fresh produce inside recycled shipping containers, in abandoned factories and warehouses, and even inside their own houses and kitchens. I'll be focusing more on our community farming model, which looks something like this. And the goal is to transform a local resident into a farming expert who eventually won't need our direct support to sustain his day-to-day operations. So far, we've been focusing on low-income individuals and migrants who really do use the extra money coming from sales. So we subsidize the farming kits and the training courses and 6 months of support through donors, who are usually either international development organizations or multinational corporations doing their corporate social responsibility work. But the goal is actually to reach a point where we are offering virtually anyone these kits through microfinancing solutions and other payment options from banks and private financial institutions. So after we acquire the fund from the donors, we go on and agree to, and we select the final number of beneficiaries. We give them an intensive training course about hydroponics and how to operate the kits throughout the whole farming process, how to market and sell their produce, and we then install our kits on the roofs and hand over the supplies they need to start growing. We support them through a couple of their growing cycles and with the final sales of produce to the markets. In the 10 years of our operation, we've installed over 800 farms. We've trained over 1,000 individuals in Cairo, and they've gone to produce over 160,000 crops per month, crops such as kale, lettuce, arugula, spinach, celery, basil, just to name a few. Two projects that we're proud of include a current project that we're working on right now with the International Organization for Migration and funded by the European Union. This project is the first for us to launch our urban farming lettuce kit, which I'll talk about more in detail later. We've also finished installing 500 rooftop farms in Hadaiq Helwan with Drosos with the help of Qafiyat al-Khair. But our projects in the past didn't come without any problems, which is why we realized the need to develop the urban farming kit. And it was mainly that it was really difficult to retain our farmers at a certain scale, which happened for really good reason. We found that our farms weren't that easy to operate continuously without our direct support. And it wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. And because of their small size, they produced a relatively small profit, and any inefficiency during the growing cycles or any change in seasonality costed the farmers a lot. And they just couldn't bear that, and mostly they ended up discontinuing their projects. And as a solution to these problems, we developed the first version of the urban farming kit, which is similar in concept to container farms, which are growing in popularity in Europe and North America. So an equivalent of an acre of land being grown inside a refurbished and recycled shipping container and placed anywhere in the city, on the rooftop, in parking lots, in any empty space. Except that our kits aren't as advanced, of course, or efficient yet. But we do take advantage of the abundance of sunlight in our regions, so our kits don't require artificial lighting, making it a lot lower in capital and running costs. So this first version of the kit is optimized to grow 450 heads of lettuce per month all year round. Each kit has a smart controller that automates most of the farming process, such as controlling the temperature and the humidity, automating the irrigation and nutrient dosing. The units are linked to a mobile application. And through the data that we collect from each farm and our own farming know-how, we guide each farmer remotely to make the right decisions throughout the farming process. We're also working on linking this mobile app with third-party sales platforms and then aggregate the produce and eventually sell it to their customers in bulk, so that each farmer really has a sale ready for his produce before he or she even starts farming. Right now, we're in the final stages of acquiring a fund that will help us introduce kits for different crops, increase the production capacity of each kit, create different models and sizes, and hopefully scale across major cities in Egypt and eventually the MENA region. Just to recap, our dream is to transform rooftops of our cities into productive farms so that we can minimize the farmland needed and the carbon footprint resulting from our growing population. We want to start growing our food closer to where it's being consumed. So imagine if once a week you walk to a nearby building on your street and you buy your tomatoes and your cucumbers and your salad greens from on top of the roof, or you order them from an app and it tells you that it's being prepared on your neighbor's roof. Imagine if schools, restaurants, hotels, malls, even governmental grew their needs of fresh produce right there on their roofs. And we really hope that we're joined by like-minded businesses and organizations and individuals even to take this initiative to another level. Because once we have a large enough network of farms inside the city, we think it'll be second nature for us all to source produce that really is fresh and locally and sustainably grown. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Malik. That was very insightful. I've known about Shadoof for a while, but I wasn't aware about these kits and how you're progressing and how you're changing also and adding new business models to your to the company. So that's amazing. And there are lots of common points between most of the initiatives. You're always including the social part of it and the social impact, which is definitely a must to make sure that the idea is viable and also sustainable. Also embedding the technology part, so that also to maintain the operation and to make it more, maybe to monitor it better. So yeah, even if the ideas are from different sectors, but still it's good that we can find this alignment, and also including all these stakeholders with you. That will come up next in our talks with the other experts. I'm sure they have a lot to talk about and to reflect on your stories, both you and Barbara. So yes, I'm sure you'll be excited to hear about their opinions. So
of course, thank you, Radwa.
Thank you, madam. So yes, so now we will have a short break. Maybe if someone wants to grab a cup of coffee, if you want to take a very small break, and then we'll be back. So by now, yeah, just 10 minutes and we'll be there. So I'm waiting for you all.